Hi everybody, Bernstein here at the Boxing Hall of Fame, the International Boxing Hall of Fame, as we continue with our tour this weekend of the induction ceremonies and all the great events. But of course, I can't bring you on a tour of this weekend without showing you the actual Boxing Hall of Fame. So as you come in here, the first thing you see are some of these great championship belts. And these particular belts right here are the belts of Tony Zale, the great middleweight champion, who was a fantastic fighter in the 50s and the 40s. And the interesting thing about Tony Zale is that when I was an amateur boxer 8 million years ago in Chicago, Tony Zale would come to some of our training sessions because he was friends with our coach in the southwest side of Chicago. He, of course, was from Gary, Indiana. And Tony was, even then, in later years, as tough as nails. And he was quite the taskmaster for all of us. And we were just a bunch of young amateur boxers who, at the beginning stages of fighting, but he was always great to take time and talk to us. And as I said, the Man of Steel was his nickname. Believe me, it applied to him. Let's go over this way as we head through it. Folks enjoying the displays here. This is an era that, trust me, I know a little bit about. There's the trunks of Tommy Hearns that he wore in his big fights. And this whole section here has to do with Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, and that, of course, was an era in the 1980s that I was privileged to do so many of these great fights. I did Hagler Hearns, I did a number of Ray Leonard fights, and of course many Marvin Hagler matches. And this section here to me represents an era in boxing, the 1980s, that was very special. My good friend Gil Clancy, who is also enshrined here in this Hall of Fame, lived through decades of great boxing. He was involved as a trainer and a manager and a matchmaker and a broadcaster in many decades of great boxing. He said to me that this decade, the 80s, was as good as any that he had ever seen. It was a very, very special time. And of course, this isn't the only era that's represented here in this museum. One of the ways all the different eras are represented, of course, are with the people that are inducted here in the Boxing Hall of Fame. And this part of the famous wall is a pretty good one to look at because you have some of the great modern fighters, Muhammad Ali, Henry Armstrong, Carmen Basilio, of course, is from this area. And as you go on down, Joe Frazier, the great nemesis of Ali, and Bob Foster, possibly one of the best light heavyweights of all time, and Emil Griffith, Carlos Monzon, The Rock. You see all these great fighters, and what's fun about this is as you go through this wall of the old-timers, the modern fighters, and all the other people that are inducted in the Hall of Fame, like the broadcasters, the writers, the matchmakers, the promoters, you really get a sense of the history of the sport of boxing. I'm honored to be on this wall along with these wonderful people, and it's a great way to remind yourself of the history of the sport of boxing. One of the ways this Hall of Fame chronicles all the different eras and all the great fighters is with a section devoted to the heavyweights. Everybody loves the heavyweight division. They're the big hitters in the sport. And here you see, larger than life, many of the great heavyweight champions. And as we zero in over here, we see two men who were among the hardest hitters in the heavyweight division ever, George Foreman and Sonny Liston. And interestingly, George, as a youngster, admired Sonny Liston and in a way patterned some of his pre-fight behavior after Liston. Of course, Sonny Liston known for his famous stare that intimidated opponents well before Mike Tyson did it. The ironic thing is that because he kind of admired Liston, many people thought that the George Foreman of those early years was a very surly figure. In reality, he still had a great sense of humor. It's just that we didn't notice it so much. But of course, in later years, he would become really one of the most entertaining personalities, not just in boxing, but in any sport. He is part of this heavyweight collection at the Hall of Fame. One of the activities at the induction weekend here at the International Boxing Hall of Fame is everybody that goes into the Hall of Fame, and other boxers that are here as well, do a fist casting where you see the actual size of their fist. Fascinating display on it. And let's zero in on this particular case, which is one of the most diverse. Look, you can see Lennox Lewis, of course, one of the biggest men to ever hold a heavyweight championship, and right next to him, Willie Pep, the featherweight champion. Yeah, Willie's hand was just a bit smaller than his, and you can see with Duran and all the different fighters. You may wonder, whose is the biggest fist ever to do this fist casting? Primo Carnera, the giant heavyweight of days gone by, has the biggest hand. So as big as Lennox Lewis's hand is, imagine one even bigger, and that one's in the other room here at the Hall of Fame. You can see that when you come here as well. So we took you through what I think is a little bit of a sample of what you can see when you come to the International Boxing Hall of Fame here in Canastota and visit all of this. Of course, this is just a small sampling. You can spend hours and hours and hours looking at this fascinating material.